what you don't know about social media? Well, then you're in the right place. This is the Seb Rust Show on Social Buzz on Air. Social Media Radio. Bring you tips, tricks, tools, and extreme value. Broadcasting from our studio in Miami. And now, here's your host, Sebastian Rust.
What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Hey, welcome to the show. Maybe welcome back to the show because you're a repeat listener. Either way, I'm glad you're here. My guest this week is coming to us from the other side of the world, literally. Beautiful city of Sydney, Australia. Sally Illingworth is a LinkedIn media personality. Sally and I connected, well, on LinkedIn at some point last year because she just shot these real, authentic, raw videos with good advice. And when you watch the video, it kind of jumped out and grabbed you and got your attention. You're like, I like this girl. Big in the Australian accent. She's got really cool things to talk about, and she's smart, gives me great advice. I'm going to follow her. It is no wonder that she's been able to amass well over 26 million organic content views with an average engagement rate of well over 3%, which is bananas if you've been on LinkedIn for any amount of time. So I said, I've got to track Sally down. It was not the easiest task because she is on the other side of the world, and there's a teeny tiny time difference. But my goodness, we made it happen. It was 1 a.m. her time. It was 8 a.m. my time, and we had a great conversation. Friends, please help me welcome to the show, Sally Illingworth. What's happening?
Not much. Just enjoying, well, I'm excited for this conversation with you at 1 o'clock in the morning, Sydney time.
Well, I'm excited that you stayed up for this interview. I really, really am. And can I just state for the record, we just got done talking about this, but pinning down another human being that's on the other side of the planet is no easy task by any means at all. So it took us a couple of weeks to get this pinned down, but thanks for staying up and thanks for your time. You and I connected. Well, today we officially connected on LinkedIn. Whoa! Yeah, she accepted my LinkedIn.
I was like, oh, I didn't even accept this connection request. I was like, what am I doing? I was like,
you know what? There's no one to blame because you just got done talking about this on your live. There is a lot of noise out there, and it's just so difficult to not have something fall through the cracks. So I'm excited to have you here. I told you that I had kind of an unplanned LinkedIn series that I've put together here with a few other LinkedIn influencers and people that are just crushing the LinkedIn game, and you're part of that crew. So again, I'm stoked to have you here, and I'm fired up to find out what your story is. So let's back up for everybody real quick and help my audience better understand where you started. Where did you go to school for marketing? Did you have a marketing job? How did you get to present day where you woke up one day and said, you know what, LinkedIn is my obvious move? So if we can kind of paint a picture and give us a 30,000 foot perspective of Sally.
I know it's actually a really interesting conversation because, and like we were sort of speaking about this just a little bit earlier about your daughter being an introvert and so forth. Like, my background is like I was never on the front side of things, right? Like I was like the background chick. I do all the Excel spreadsheets, like I'm a geek like that.
Right.
And like that's sort of where I started in my career, like holistically, if you like. So I started my career very young, and then I sort of got a lot into sort of say operations management, project management, training and development, doing a lot of, I suppose, program development, if you like, as well. So going, okay, what programs do we need to develop to be able to train these people in these roles and so forth. And interestingly, it was all sort of in the pizza landscape. So I come from a pizza background. And anyway, so that's sort of the most...
Pizza background. Did you just say pizza, ladies and gentlemen? The conversation's already off to an amazing start here. All right, we're going to have to talk more about pizza because holy cow. Yeah, go ahead.
I love pizza.
I'm obsessed. Yes. If people don't like pizza, I don't trust them.
No, I know. Everyone's got to have pizza, right?
Right. There's got to be
I always say in the pizza industry, I'm like, when I joke around and someone would be like, who's the target market for the pizza product you're selling? I'd be like, well, everyone. Like, who doesn't eat pizza? There's two types of people in the world, the people who eat pizza and then the people who are lying and they pretend they don't eat pizza, right? Everyone loves a pizza.
Those are cat lovers. Yeah, I'm convinced.
Yeah. So that's sort of like the background of my career, if you like, and that sort of, evolved and whatnot. But when it comes to LinkedIn, it was sort of going, it was be almost about 2 years ago now. And there were sort of a couple of things. Like one, I was feeling a little bit flat in my career. Like I get bored very easily. If I'm not being challenged, if I'm not learning something new, I get very frustrated and I'm just like, yep, okay, what's next? I need something else. Give me something harder, right?
Right.
And then the other aspect of things, so there was that sort of like personal development side, if you like, where I was just feeling a bit dull. And then the other side of things was I was quite fascinated in the social media landscape, and I'm sort of seeing these people do all sorts of things online, and I'm like, why are people spending so much time watching these videos online? Like, what, do they not have a job to do? Like, do they have not, don't have, they need to go on places they need to be and so forth?
Sure.
And so I started to get this like little urge to go, maybe I test it and see what happens and see what I can learn about this, right? Because I like to make sense of things, and I like to, make things seem logical, right? Which is difficult with, say, social media and content consumption because it's emotional. It's highly emotional for people. And even the processing of creating content is highly emotional. So anyway, I had those sort of two things, right? Like I wanted a challenge, and then the other thing was I was just like, why are people watching videos online? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to start putting videos out and whatnot and just see what happens. No idea what I was going to talk about. So I just started with things from experience. And the reason I chose LinkedIn was because it felt like the safest option, because I'd already been on Facebook, especially because I moved out of home when I was like 15. So that was how I kept in touch with the family. I always post updates, and I'd be like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So on Facebook, for example, which was probably my most active platform, I was like, well, I can't go on there and post videos talking about stuff because my mum's just going to come on and laugh at me. My brother's just going to make silly jokes. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to LinkedIn because I don't know anyone there. And then sort of to cut a long story short, I just started putting videos out, didn't realize the video feature was new. I had absolutely no idea at all. So then obviously there were certain benefits to that from the algorithm's perspective.
Sure.
And then I really just started to sort of build a lot of traction and whatnot because I sort of kept at it. I was consistent, and one of the earlier people that would do videos in a very sort of real and sincere and genuine way because I didn't know any different. And then I thought I was doing something wrong because people would be like, why are you in your Nike shorts on LinkedIn? And I'd be like, I don't know. I was just wearing them today. Like, does it matter? Right. So, that's sort of how it all started. And then it's just become something so much bigger than I ever actually planned for.
You know what? I'm like, where did I first? Because you always remember some sort of piece of content or something, but I always remember it was who's this blonde Australian girl in workout gear with incredible energy. Like you want to you jump out and go, hey, listen to this. I have something to talk about and tell you about that's going to help you. And every time I saw that, and that's exactly when I'm like, oh, okay, she's my people. Yeah. So,
so many people like to joke about that. They'd be like, this is what happens when you drink too much coffee. Like she's too energetic, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I drink a lot of coffee, but I'm actually just excited about what I want to tell you guys because I thought of something and I just want to tell you about it. You know?
Yes, I totally remember. Those were I want to say they were almost like you filmed a lot of videos like in your apartment. It seemed like in a living room.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was where at some point last year. But it's crazy to see that the growth over it's just been like 2 years here, which is it's been explosive growth for a lot of LinkedIn influencers. A majority of them, they're like, yeah, I got on in like, I don't know, March 2018, and here we are.
It's been absolutely massive. And that's one of the things, like, I'm not sure about too many others, but I know me, like I sort of went in naively. I had no idea.
Sure.
And because I wasn't even in that marketing space, I wasn't looking for work or anything like that. It was literally just a passion project.
Right.
And then I sort of discovered this gold mine and then I started paying attention to things. And I'm like, okay, so I am learning about certain things you can do to get someone to watch a video, how you, for example, craft the copy and all that sort of stuff, what the thumbnail is for the video, are you looking weird in the newsfeed and stuff like that. And then I started to dig deeper and go, well, how does this compare to other social media platforms? Like, because the views people are getting here are just astronomical by default. And then you've got people complaining about Facebook. So that's when I started to sort of heavily invest my time into understanding social media, all that sort of stuff, because I really had no idea. I mean, I was selling pizzas and doing strategic project management. I mean, that was just, and running numbers in Excel spreadsheets, look at profitability and productivity analytics. Like, it was just not my thing. I had no idea. Right. And then I was like, wow, this LinkedIn thing is massive. And a lot of people need to jump onto this and actually start using it.
So did you ended up leaving your job?
Yeah, so like I was in the pizza industry still up until June last year. because I was sort of involved in multiple capacities. I was at like a, say, strategic level corporately. I owned a pizza shop. And then I helped, sort of franchisees and all that sort of stuff with their individual businesses. So I was very sort of heavily involved in that space. So it wasn't a matter of just leaving a job or anything. I had so many like ties to cut, really. Sure. So in the process, like when I started that LinkedIn journey, and then I remember I got contacted by two highly reputable and large companies in Australia, probably about 3 months in, saying, hey, can you come and help our marketing team sort of do this? And I was like, I'm going to be completely honest, I actually have no idea what I'm doing right now. And so I was like, when they came to me and they're like large companies, I was like, shit, I need to reverse engineer this stuff and start figuring out what I'm actually doing and how you can pull some structure around that, because people want to know. So then I started to do that and take on different pieces of work and so forth and started tackling that market. But given the sort of extent of the ties I had in the food retail franchising industry, it's not something I could just drop overnight. I wasn't just an employee. So sort of had to manage that, and then started building, I suppose, this other business of mine on the side, as much as I could manage it all, if you like. But at the same time, very much appreciating, I was like, I'm still learning all of this. So in that sense, I'm not just going to look for quick cash grabs because people are willing to throw cash. I really want to understand what's going on here, and then figure out how best to offer that service to people. So yeah,
so
it's been interesting.
No, it really, well, we live in a time where going and saying yes to something and then going and figuring it out is very, very common. Before that, back in the day, if you will, that was called not being prepared. But sometimes that is what serves us.
Fake it till you make it, sort of thing. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, I think that's terrible advice. I was told that for years, and I did in my early days when I started. I had to ride my skateboard to a networking event with my fake Rolex. I walk in there like I own the place. And I think the better advice, Sally, than fake it till you make it is act as if. Act as if
I love it.
There. Act as if you are where you want to be. You are who you want to be, etc. So walk me through what you did when that company there in Australia reached out and said, hey, whatever you're doing, can you come do it for us? Did you end up contracting with them?
No, so one of them, I ended up delivering some work for them, but just by training their marketing team, if you like. So it wasn't an ongoing thing. I didn't have the capacity to deal with that. And I didn't feel confident to actually sort of commit to that. I was like, I really don't feel like I'm actually the right person to help you with this yet. So what I did was they engaged me. I delivered a session for their whole marketing team. And the other one, I sort of just was very honest with them, and they are extremely like a massive, massive company. And I said, look, I'll give you guys a bit of sort of strategy and stuff like that, but I'm certainly not going to put my hand up and say I want to do this, because me as an individual, beyond anything, I hate feeling incompetent, and I hate letting people down, and I can't deliver. And then in hindsight, obviously, further down the track, when you eventually sort of really figure it out and what's going on, and you get super clear on this is how I can really help people replicate or do something similar to what I've done personally, then you're like, shit, I should have figured this out quicker,
Right.
It's been awesome from them, but that's just the nature of the beast. And I think regardless as to what the sort of disregarding the fact that I didn't go ahead and just commit and dive in and go, I'm just going to figure it out. I really didn't actually have the capacity to do that from a time perspective, because of how many things I was already managing. But what that really did for me, which is, really sort of a blessing in disguise in hindsight, was by those two companies approaching me, that was like the light switch. What you're doing, there is something here. This is not just you having some sort of passion project to keep yourself entertained and making yourself look silly online by dancing or something like that. There is actually something here. And for that, that's probably the best thing that happened in the early days on LinkedIn for me.
So I totally get, that's totally happened to me before as well, as far as certain scenarios or situations that may not turn into an opportunity, but they were a different type of opportunity. The opportunity was flipping the switch on and saying, hey, maybe I need to take a closer look at this. And I did the same thing with my podcasting solution, as I went back 9 years ago and said, what's the first thing you did when you started a podcast? Great. What's the next thing that you did? And I started to document that process years later, and I do look at it now. Not with the podcasting stuff, I'm not as regretful for not getting started earlier. I think actually my timing is perfect right now. It was 2016, it was a few years back, but now that it is popular, I feel like I've got a slight advantage to, understanding, how the whole process works. So when you started, when you started putting together or putting your thoughts on paper and conceptualizing a solution, did you then start bringing clients on? And what did that solution look like that you put, a pen to paper with?
Yeah, so there's sort of multiple solutions, if you like, but the first thing I started doing was being more receptive and open to helping the people that were contacting me. So there's, for example, say the individual end of the market. So people coming to me going, okay, well, I'm looking for my next job or whatever the scenario is. And so I started to play in that space a bit because obviously the needs, if you like, and then the strategy for, say, an individual versus an enterprise, like they're quite different, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's different constraints in both scenarios and so forth. And so I started to just entertain those things a little bit more and go, okay, you're a business, you're looking for some advice, right? So I started to play in that space and do a lot of project-based stuff, deliver a lot of workshops and whatnot. And then the same with individuals, working sort of one-on-one coaching capacity, just test different things. And then even sort of beyond that, started working with different groups who would sort of invite me in to, say, speak at something and whatnot, because then people start coming to you as a LinkedIn guru and you're like, I'm not LinkedIn
I wasn't
guru.
ready for all this, yeah.
And so then some of those groups, then we started working on concepts to pull together events and stuff like that, because I was like, you know what, if I can get 100 people in a room, every 3 months, talk about something to do with LinkedIn, open it up to Q&A, and based on the demographics of the audience, figure out what their questions are. Then I just reverse engineer their questions and go, okay, what are the most prolific questions? And therefore, then you build solutions around that, right? Because often, even today, like it'll happen now, where we'll host a LinkedIn event and deliver content. And when it comes to the Q&A, every question that gets answered is not the sort of question you would anticipate, because particularly as, say, service professionals and whatnot, we focus a lot on our expertise and the service we can offer. But often you'll find that the target client, like they're not even at that stage yet. They're not even at the stage where they even really know what their problem is,
right,
or where the opportunities are. So in the early days, that's what I started to do, because again, I just didn't have the capacity to like really just full-time dive into that. So really I was managing already 3 very large things. One of them was a business and all that, managing that from a distance and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I kickstarted it, and then sort of got to the point where I was like, okay, as I start managing other things, reorganizing, restructuring those things that I already sort of had going on, then it was just a matter of working into, slowly turning it into something that's a bit more full-time, if you like, and a bit more of a business that's scalable and so forth. So that's really sort of how it all came about. Because the other thing as well is, I think for me, because it wasn't something that was planned, you've obviously got to deal with that emotionally as well, because then you're sort of thinking like, well, okay, well, I didn't expect this to be happen, but there's so much opportunity and demand there. I mean, is this something I want to deal with? Is this a business I want to build? Is this something I want to grow? Especially when you've had your heart and soul invested into one brand, if you like, for 8 years prior. Also managing that, and it was a lot to deal with. So,
I bet.
When it comes to last year, I was like, I really just need to slowly. So last year, for the whole of sort of 2019, January onwards, I just staged sort of, wrapping things up in multiple capacities with a lot of the other stuff I was still doing, to slowly sort of make way for more of this workflow, and really just sort of growing this business, if you like. So, yeah.
Do you still have the pizza shop?
No, I don't. So that was, I had that for about 4 years. Yeah, about 4 years. So that was the first thing I sort of wrapped up, exited, and then started managing the other things. And then it was, so come June last year. And because I'm still sort of supporting in, say, a strategic capacity. And then I was like, no, I just need to, you can't sort of, you're trying to juggle too many things. And I think it's sort of one of those things where it was like, my time's done with that aspect of my career, if you like. So sort of give yourself the opportunity to move on and venture into something else. So, yeah.
So bring us to present day. What's your core focus at the moment, or core offering, and what are you doing for clients these days? Now here we are, almost a couple months short of a year, which would have been the beginning of winter for you, right? June 2019.
Yeah, I'm not good with like seasons and geography.
We're opposites. I know that much. That's about it.
Yeah. So yeah, well, you're right. What are we now? March. Yeah. Wow. Time goes so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I still do a lot of the project-based stuff, a lot of workshop-based things and whatnot. And they're particularly good in terms of generating leads and bringing clients on board. Even larger scale events. They're a really great way to sort of just, get that sort of first introduction, that first sort of touch point and engagement. And then so you pick up business pretty well from that.
Sure.
But the thing for me at the moment, like I said, there's sort of two key elements, or probably three actually, that I'm really focused on. So one is a lot of my time is tied up in sort of higher level project-based work. So beyond LinkedIn, right? Like I think, LinkedIn's very much become just sort of a component of what I focus on. So I spend a lot of time like strategic sort of communications plans and stuff like that, working through that, particularly with different corporate clients. So a focus on, say, executive leadership teams and really just trying to figure out how they can become key opinion leaders in the industries, in the spaces and in the conversations they need to, particularly for ones that are in, say, challenging industries like tech, right? Or they've got particular sort of, say, political challenges in their space. And so they really need to try and own that narrative, right? And really be a part of that narrative. Mm-hmm. So that's a large part of my work. And I really enjoy that stuff because it's quite challenging. And then another large part of it is sort of on the sort of agency style side, if you like, in terms of, say, like marketing as a service, right? Like that's really what it's developed into. Early days, it was sort of module-based service, if you like. So you just sort of support clients ongoing with particular elements of social strategy beyond LinkedIn. So including, say, Facebook, Instagram, so forth. But in the last couple of months, we've really started to venture into like sort of, holistic marketing solution, including like websites and all that sort of stuff. So there's that part, and that's a beast in its own, and very difficult to sort of manage and build and whatnot. But it is a growing space, interestingly. I think a lot of, say, particularly sort of like, say, medium-sized businesses, they're finding that it's probably a good option in some cases to really outsource almost that marketing function for themselves.
Sure.
And then the other aspect of things that I spend a lot of time doing now and all that sort of stuff off the back of building a personal brand is, and that's sort of almost a business in its own, is that, the speaking gigs and all that sort of stuff and the contributions to different, whether it's, published media and whatnot. That's quite a bit to manage. I spend a decent amount of time doing that. So just kind of juggle all the balls like a clown,
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, well, I don't think there's ever been an easier time to build a brand and simultaneously build a personal brand at the same time. Because, the personal branding aspect is now more relevant than ever. I always say that, 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, like if you had a sales job and then you had a side gig or a side hustle, like that's not okay. Like you're cheating on your job. These days, if you don't have a brand and I can't look you up and find more about you and your content gives me a reason to hire you, then you're probably not going to be, an ideal candidate. So just exciting times to be alive and to build a brand. There's never been an easier time. I believe our personal brand.
Well, they talk a lot about now, which is what you're saying, like that idea of like sort of having a portfolio career, you don't do sort of one job. And even if you look at it from, say, like a corporate level, and, I know a lot of the people I deal with, the groups I deal with, internally, like they're looking at exploring what does the future of work look like, and they, to get really technical, they look at it as like on balance sheet, off balance sheet labor, like how we are choosing these resources and where are we spending our money. So I think, it's opportunistic, especially for employees, I think, because it gives them that comfort, right? Where it's more acceptable to have multiple revenue streams and be doing multiple things. But it's also very difficult at the same time. And, it's also difficult for the enterprises because how do you then how does that impact accountability, right? Like if you work for a company, say, in any capacity, and then you also have your side hustle and your brand and all that, how do you manage the accountability and whatnot to ensure that they're actually doing their job at the times and whatever that they're supposed to do? It's a big challenge.
A lot of moving parts. A lot of moving parts. I said there's a lot of moving parts with that. But the upside is far. I know several. I run 99% of the stuff we do virtual. So there's a bit of babysitting involved, but it's not as much as babysitting a sales team.
No.
So most people are completely in the dark on what's going on LinkedIn. I'd say the average Joe, anybody who's in business that says, yes, I'm on LinkedIn. I had, but I haven't been active on LinkedIn. I was one of those people until last year, until I said, well, these individuals are crushing it and I need to better understand how this is all happening. And
so were you using LinkedIn a lot before at that time when you identified that? Were you just like what they call a LinkedIn lurker and you just sort of watching everyone?
Well, no, I started my account in 2004 and like right after MySpace days. And then Gary Vee's my mentor. I've been following his stuff for 11 years now, and every single thing that he predicts happens. I mean, a majority of them. And he's just LinkedIn.
You heard him say LinkedIn. Actually, can I say for the record, when I first heard him say, everyone's going to get on LinkedIn, I was like, yeah, it's about time you tuned in, Gary. Of course everyone's going to get on LinkedIn. I was like, yeah, so I got ahead of you on this one, buddy. Like,
Right. Exactly. So I started to follow the lead.
No one listens to like me or anyone. But when Gary says it, it's real. You've got to get on LinkedIn.
Yeah, right. So, I try to follow his lead with that and spend more time. And then I start to see this LinkedIn local, LinkedIn. And then Shay popped up in my feed, and then you popped up in my feed, and then Richard Moore and Judy Fox. And I'm like, I like their content and I like them. And I've gotten an opportunity to build a relationship through those interviews, which has been great. And to really better understand what's going on. But I think the common denominator of the question that I ask everybody that's a LinkedIn influencer is that what should people be doing that they're not currently doing on LinkedIn? And my immediate response, being a newbie as far as like telling anybody what they should be doing on LinkedIn, because I'm almost part of their group, is creating, it's an 80-20 rule, right? If you had to pick a number, 80-20 rule. 80% of your LinkedIn strategy should be engaging and connecting with people, engaging on other people's content and engaging. And the other 20% is your actual content. Because one thing doesn't work without the other. If you're not engaging with other people's content, you're not connecting with new people, you're not piquing people's interest to figure out and view your profile and see what you're all about, and then potentially connect with you and hopefully have a conversation that leads to some sort of opportunity. Are you in alignment with that? I mean, this is what my synopsis has been thus far. It's not about how cool your videos are. And it's not about how perfect they are. Nobody cares. And if they care about what you're saying and what you're talking about, done is better than perfect, right? But what are your thoughts on what people should be doing that they're not currently doing, and maybe some of the things that you teach at these workshops that you've done for the newbies, if you were, the people that have no idea what they should be doing but want to do something?
Yeah, well, I think you make a good point. Like, before I share some of my thoughts, about say videos not being perfect, I think that's a massive thing. I find that is the biggest thing that holds most of us back, right? And people wouldn't believe it, but even me, I will record a video, and it's very rare that I'll do more than one take, because then I start overthinking it. Then I start trying to almost script it and go, well, I've got to say this, I've got to say that. But even someone like me, who I've been doing it for almost 2 years, I still get nervous. I still go, oh, my head looks really shiny in that one. My chin, oh, that looks a bit puffy today.
I got my little shine control right here. Look at that. Neutrogena coming through. Yeah.
I'm going to have to invest in that. And it's like, everyone feels that, right? And it's completely human to feel. I mean, we're not naturally designed to want to sit on a camera, right? It's just the way that we can communicate now, then we should be leveraging it. But I think in terms of what people should be doing on LinkedIn, say you're a newbie, right? One, I always like to preface it was there's so much shit you should be doing. There's a list this big, and it doesn't matter who I'm working with, who I'm coaching, whatever, or even say you're developing a strategy and people just think it's as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. So no, there's a whole bunch of stuff you could be doing. But I think certainly to start, one thing is you got to get sort of clear, and sometimes you have to sort of just start taking action to get a lot clearer on it. But trying to figure out as early as you can, what do you want to achieve, right? Because that is really going to influence what you should be doing on the platform, because everyone uses it for a different reason. And it's also going to influence what your activities actually look like. For example, your content creation. And that strategy is going to be quite different if you're looking for a job, right? Versus you're trying to generate leads, or you're trying to promote an event even. So you really need to understand at any given point in time, what's my objective? What do I want to achieve? And I think generally speaking, there's two sort of, I suppose, activity categories I look at. One of them is the very sort of high intent base. which is sort of your traditional like outreach strategies. Like, okay, I'm here to generate leads or get people to an event or get people to come and check something out on my website or whatever the scenario is. And that's very much about that engagement and initiating that high intent conversation. And then you've got like interest-based stuff, which is, okay, I'm going to, for example, deploy content assets and I'm trying to attract people that are interested in that conversation, right? Because it's going to add value to them, it's going to help them, whatever the scenario is. So generally speaking, like that's sort of like two different angles to like LinkedIn activity. But when it comes to like balancing it, you know, and you mentioned like how much, so for example, how do you prioritize engaging with everyone else's stuff, say, versus just focusing on your own? And I think it's interesting in the sense that there's probably no one rule for everyone, like I always say. I think one, it depends on where you're starting at. Like, for example, if you're a complete newbie and you just set up your profile today, how you tackle that is going to be very different. If you've been on there for 10 years, you've got maybe 1,000, 2,000 connections, but you just know all those people and you're looking to expand. I mean, the strategy is going to be completely different as to how you start and where you can best leverage and all that sort of stuff. But I know for me, right, in the early days, this is probably the best way to, I suppose, show maybe how I like sort of prioritized it at different points. You know, because I think it's a growth stage thing. Like it really depends on where you're at in your growth. Like for example, if you look at, and now I'm sort of like jumping all over the place, but if you look at, say, like the state of my profile as it currently stands, you know, like because of the point it's grown to, there's now a lot more workload in terms of engaging with people through comments on my own stuff. Right. So then the question becomes, well, how do you prioritize that versus going out and making sure you're engaging on other people's content? You know, so you need to be able to manage that. You know, and some people outsource that and all that sort of stuff. But certainly in the earlier days, it is important that you do go out, you engage with other people and you really prioritize that. And the other thing that's really good for is understanding what's going on on the LinkedIn marketplace. And more importantly, if you're targeted about it and you're very specific about who you're looking at. So for example, if you want to grow around the marketing conversation, then make sure you're looking at hashtag marketing. You're going through and finding prolific marketing professionals in your area and looking at what they're doing and how they're delivering and what people are interested in and so forth. So in that sense, especially in the early days, that should be a massive priority. But it's interesting in the sense that like, I think the underlying thing probably is that in any scenario, whether or not, you know, you prioritize deploying your own content and nurturing that more than connecting with other people, the biggest thing everyone should be doing, regardless as to where they're at, is deploying content, you know, creating content and sharing and telling their story. You know, I know that in my scenario, for example, to share that data, like at any given point in time, at least about 63% of all my profile traffic comes from being discovered in the newsfeed. And the only way you're discovered in the newsfeed is through sharing your own content or engaging with someone else's. So to me, that data, which is consistent in a lot of cases that I see, is sort of proof in the pudding that you need to be contributing through content. And then also engaging with other people so that you get that newsfeed placement, you know, which I think is hard for a lot of people because we've sort of been conditioned to think on LinkedIn that it's all about the keywords. So you get discovered for the right keywords, which is very important. But as LinkedIn's evolved as a platform, it's become a content haven. Before, you would know this better than I. You've been on there, you know, like well before I have. And LinkedIn was never a content haven before. There wasn't as much content out there. There weren't as many people contributing, and particularly in the forms they are now. So in that sense, the way people use the platform has very much changed. And so now in terms of getting discovered and becoming top of mind and getting that top of feed placement, the top of newsfeed placement, it's important that you appreciate the changing dynamic in terms of how people use it. And that includes for people like job seekers who typically would only rely on keywords. They really need to be mindful of that and how they're leveraging it, I suppose, and working to the ego of the algorithms. That's what I like to call it. Is like give the algorithm what it wants. The algorithm wants you to engage with other people, go and do it. You know, the algorithm wants you to share content, go and do it, right? Anything you can do to feed the algorithm's ego, which in most cases pretty much involves doing anything on LinkedIn that increases your time on the platform, or it drives someone else to increase their time on the platform, you're going to get rewarded for it. So if you want to leverage that, that's probably the best thing to do.
You know,
but doing it in a way that's sincere as well, right? That's the hard part, balancing that, not losing sight of, say, volume of activity over value. You know, it's
volume versus. I like that. So I posted a couple of weeks ago. I was going to have Shay Rowbottom on the show, and she commented in the post. She broke the damn internet, and yeah, that blows my mind.
Your profile graph were like this. It was just like this, right? Boom.
It went like there was like 6,000 views on the image. It was ludicrous, and that's the power of it. The power of being able to, But the downside of that is like post interview to get her attention again. Short of texting her, is extremely difficult because I'm back in the noise now, right? She's back to the everyday bombarding, and she's like, I think she posted something about it the other day that if I don't respond to something you've tagged me and get other people to talk about it, so I'll keep getting notifications because it's just so. That brings me to ask you, how have you been able to manage this growth? Because it's a tremendous amount of time. Do you have a helper that helps you respond to people? Or are you doing it all on your own? Because it does become extremely time consuming while extremely important all at the same time. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I remember in the early days when I first got started, especially because I just did not anticipate it, right? It was very time consuming, and usually every Sunday, for example, I'd sit down for like 4 hours just trying to respond to private messages. And literally it would have been about 2 months ago. I'm going through my private messages, right? And I see there's still some I haven't responded to from like 2018. And there was one guy in particular, and I responded to him, and like this is like 2 months ago. And it literally, on the day I responded, it had been 12 months since he sent his message. And he's like, I was still waiting to hear from you. And we ended up talking, whatever. And, he's trying to raise capital for his startup and all that sort of stuff. And it turned into this funny conversation. But I was like, wow, like that's an example of, like, I suppose, how much you need to sort of really think about these things in terms of managing your profile, right? Because say, for example, you are going on there to grow a business, build a brand and all that sort of stuff. I mean, managing your community and managing your audience, to ensure you can maintain that relationship with them is important. And that was certainly something I never anticipated from the beginning. I mean, even going through connection requests, and it's like, there's always like 16,000 sitting there. And I'm just like, God, guys, I can't accept this, like, and it's crazy. And you feel bad. And then people are like, oh, but please accept it. And I'm like, okay, it sort of really can't, right? Like, you get capped. But in terms of now, like, I've certainly developed better systems for myself. For example, around how I manage things like, say, for example, when people send me connection requests, because I know that generally speaking, like, I'm not going to be able to accept it, right? Because you get capped at the 30,000 direct connections. So I've developed a system around that. So for example, like, I have my message for people where it's like, guys, I'm sorry, can't, please do follow me. And I do go through sometimes and sort of clean up my followers, and all that sort of stuff, right? So I have that in place. In terms of support, no, but like, I've got admin support, I suppose, external to LinkedIn. So in terms of going like, okay, I'm going to migrate stuff off of LinkedIn into, say, email, right? Then it's like, okay, that's where the management comes in. Because that's the other thing, I suppose, is particularly when you build a personal brand that I suppose is sort of extends beyond your actual profession, right? Like, you have a lot of stuff to manage on LinkedIn in terms of like diversity of what people are coming to you for. So you really have to get clear on how you personally are going to go through and go, well, what's my criteria and how do I manage this? Because as much as I would love to get on a call with everyone that wants to get on a call, it's just not pragmatic. It's just not realistic for me and my business and so forth. So I wouldn't say that I've got my systems perfect. I certainly wouldn't say that, but it is a work in progress, and I've made a lot of improvements because it just, especially at one point, I was like, oh, this is too much. I'm just going to close the thing down. I can't deal with this, I've never had notifications on. I mean, notifications, very similar to Shay. Like, it's just to try and catch a notification. When you've got a notification comes through, it's like almost every minute. It's so difficult, and to try and find the things that you really want to pay attention to and you really want to see, which is like the mentions and stuff like that. I mean, it's just so difficult. So that's a little bit of pressure on LinkedIn to just improve their user experience. But anyway,
yeah. So where do you think we're headed with all this next 12 to 24 months? Do you think it's going to continue? Do you think the wave is going to continue to, crash perfectly over the reef, and the community is going to continue to grow?
Yeah, I think it will. The platform's growing quite decently, and since they were acquired and all that sort of stuff, I mean, it's performing very well, like as a business, as a company, right? I think in terms of like members, yeah, given that'll keep growing. I think what's going to be interesting is that as the number of people who are engaging with and contributing to the content landscape on LinkedIn, it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of dynamic changes. I mean, I'm sure that some of the other LinkedIn influencers you've had on the podcast have already spoken to this. And I've just got to say, I don't actually like calling myself a LinkedIn influencer, but we'll go with that.
I don't know what to call you guys. Like my LinkedIn people, my LinkedIn squad.
Yeah. My LinkedIn peeps.
Yeah.
Even in say like the last 12 months, like, we've really noticed a change in the, say the organic content performance that people are getting, right? So for example, if you look at say 2 years ago, 2 years ago this month that I started, what you would get, say the performance of a video within the first 1 hour, 24 hours and so forth. You're not seeing that as commonly anymore. Even for new starters, right, on the LinkedIn platform. And that's sort of putting pressure on people who are already on the platform, but also as well as people who start right now, right? Because say someone like me, I started 2 years ago and I'm like, this shit's insane. You guys got to get on here, whatever. And I talk about the stats that related to when I got started. And then so people start now and they're like, but I'm not getting that. And it's like, well, one, you've posted one video for Christ's sakes and you set your profile up yesterday. Be patient, right?
Right.
The other thing is like the algorithm's changing, how the dilution of content's changing. So many more people are contributing now and whatnot. So I think it's going to be super interesting to see how that changes, because as that also puts pressure on people who are already on the platform, there's a lot of pressure on people now to want to retain and maintain, right, that performance they've had before it started becoming so diluted. And in some cases, they're developing certain strategies that, again, I mean, are they even sustainable, right? So things like, say, and I think it's a really fascinating conversation that I won't go into because I get stuck in a rabbit hole thinking about it. But, things like engagement pods and the support groups and whatnot, there's a really interesting conversation around that. In terms of like, if you look at say Facebook and a paid advertising landscape, and they legally sort of penalize coordinated inauthentic behavior, which is something that say an engagement pod could to an extent be classified as, right? But because it's in an organic environment and you're not using it for paid content, it's treated and perceived differently. So I think as LinkedIn becomes more diluted, that conversation is going to become a lot more common. And particularly enterprises who are looking to really capitalize and leverage on LinkedIn, they're really going to have to start thinking about how they strategically build that momentum for themselves, in light of sort of not being able to get maybe the earlier stage sort of quick growth that people got when they first started on the platform. But on that note, I think, the hashtags element of LinkedIn as a tool, if you like, is something really important that everyone should be focusing on. And that's going to actually support people who are participating in that content landscape. I want to say off the top of my head, it's probably about 8 months ago, maybe thereabouts, that LinkedIn started to, I suppose, they sort of improved the level of importance that hashtags play on the platform. So, they made the change whereby you can sort of proactively and easily go and sort of manage what hashtags your profile's following and whatnot. And we're starting to see them use hashtags more, I suppose, commonly or more frequently in their recommender systems, and how that then curates your own personal newsfeed for you. So as a content creator, for example, or even as someone on there just trying to get in touch or, connect with certain people, really pay attention to the hashtags feature. Be mindful of what hashtags your profile's following, because a recommender system is similar to that of, say, if anyone who's listening, for example, doesn't understand maybe that tech element, but you look at, say, Netflix, right? You watch this film and then Netflix starts recommending you films that are similar to that, right? Because it believes, based on its back-end criteria, that, well, because you watch that, you're going to like this. And we're seeing that sort of strategy being sort of increasingly used and being shown a lot more on the user interface on LinkedIn, and hashtags play a crucial role in that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that space, particularly because I'll stop rambling in a sec. But I get so excited. But
nuts.
LinkedIn,
yeah.
Traditionally, and even now it's still so far away. LinkedIn is not optimized for content creators. You look at something as basic as your profile configuration, right? You go to Facebook And Facebook automatically puts all your photos into a photos album. You know, it automatically puts all your videos into a videos album. LinkedIn, what have we got? We just got the documents folder or the documents feed. It's not even a folder, right? So in that sense, LinkedIn is like sort of, you know, in retrospect, really just trying to, I suppose the innovation in terms of how people are using LinkedIn is really significantly outpacing how they develop the platform to be able to support that effectively, right? And I think maybe that's why a lot of people, say large content creators on other platforms, haven't really given it the attention it deserves, because they're like, well, it's an online CV, and like the feed experience, the profile configuration experience, it's crap and it doesn't support my content well, right? So yeah, I think we'll see those changes start to happen a lot in the coming months and years and whatnot, and it'll be great. And then more people will be on LinkedIn doing videos.
Well, I mean, if you look at how long Facebook's been around, and Facebook has just now become the backyard barbecue. Before it was like the place to be seen. Now it's kind of just, you know, let me share my life with you. LinkedIn is more of, you know, let's connect and get some shit done and build relationships at the same time.
In terms of building business, building brand and stuff, I think it's awesome. And, you know, what's interesting is LinkedIn, and this is what I love most about it, I think, is people, at least for the large part on there, they're looking for substantial conversations. They're looking for those big, meaningful conversations. So they're willing to invest a little bit more time into consuming content, you know, and actually interacting with you. It's not so much about the give me a quick photo I can quickly look at or whatever. And in that sense, highly opportunistic for anyone who actually wants to use their sort of expertise and really just sort of broadcast that and grow it. Yeah.
So the content, it's not just about posting a video or an image or a motivational quote, or let me just use video or image. It is about the direct response copy that's being put in the post, correct? It's what's getting people to actually read the post, not just, you can't just post a video and hope that people are going to go and watch. I mean, you probably could now, you've blazed a trail. You could probably hit a bunch of, you know, put it, you know, the $sign and the £sign and an @ sign as the text and hit post, and the thing where you'd break the damn internet. But most people can't do that because it is becoming noisier on the internet. I think people still have that old mentality that, oh, it's my LinkedIn profile, so I need to post business stuff about it because it's a business profile. And that's a big fat lie, right? So you need to post stuff that actually matters. That
I need to export that little snippet of you saying that with the video and present it at every workshop I do, because you say it so much better than I want to do that.
You're done deal. I got this whole thing. We got this whole thing recorded. We got the sound bite, the whole nine for sure. Hear my sounds? Did you hear my sounds?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure it came time. I just got this neat Roadcaster over here, and I feel like I'm in a spaceship over here just pushing buttons. But Jack Nicholson's a fan of the show. I told him that he needs to join LinkedIn. You know what he told me?
I eat breakfast 300 yards from 4,000 Cubans who are trained to kill me. So don't think for 1 second that you can come down here, flash a badge, make me nervous.
All right, Jack. My goodness. So speaking of LinkedIn pods, I had no idea about these. Shay told me I was living underneath a rock. She's like, dude, get with the program. So I've been sticking my toe into the whole LinkedIn pod world, which for those of you that are not informed, you probably aren't, because I just learned about what they are. It's a form of, they're engagement pods. So it allows you to post content to these pods and have people view and interact with the content. And some of them actually respond on your behalf, which does concern me slightly. I was a little freaked out last week. I'm like, I don't think I just said thanks. What happened here? So I joined like LemPod or one of these pods that you're good. Are these good, bad, or indifferent? The first thing I think about with automation is a violation of the terms of service is what the first thing I think of. And this could potentially mean trouble. Number one. Number two, does LinkedIn even know you're using pods?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a whole bunch of angles to that conversation. It's interesting. Like, as Shay probably noted, like a lot of people are using them. I think from an automation standpoint, like LinkedIn really doesn't like automation. I've been blocked from commenting on my own content or anyone else's, seriously, because I commented too fast too many times, right? I put this one post out ages ago, and really, based on what everyone commented, it was just like, congrats. So I copy and pasted, thanks. And after I did it a couple of times, because LinkedIn detected the automation and it freaked out, right? Because that was repetitive automation. And LinkedIn actually blocked me. I had to raise support tickets to be able to comment on anything again on LinkedIn. It was the most ridiculous experience. So without digressing, like there's that element, the automation. LinkedIn really, as it currently stands, may change over time, and they may become more, say, open to it, because they sort of get pressured into doing it. But as it currently stands, really don't like automation, robotic behavior and whatnot. So that's one thing to be mindful of. I think with the pods, what's most important, right? And it can become like quite a contentious conversation, but I think people need to really figure out, again, it goes back to what's your strategy for LinkedIn. It's the same question, like what's your objective? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Because if, for example, you were an enterprise and you are trying to build a very targeted list of leads, an engagement prob is probably going to distract you from what you're actually there to achieve. And therefore, it sort of takes away your focus from being able to apply your time and effort and money and so forth to getting the best ROI. Because if you use, say, an automated pod or even a manual one, right, and your content just starts sort of getting exposure all over the place, right, you end up sort of diluting your own message, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to get that clarity around what's working and what's not working. Because if you are artificially sort of manipulating engagement, the thing you've got to be mindful there is like, okay, well, how do we actually know what content performs the best, right? So in terms of how we invest our time, money, and resources, how do we know what video content is actually the best performing, or what articles and blogs or what text posts if we're artificially manipulating it from the outset? So that is another big thing, particularly from an enterprise level. But I think generally speaking, if you are to use them, what's most important is that you want to try and find maybe a solution, if you want to call it that, that is targeted, right? So say, for example, you're on there to achieve a specific thing, which is maybe build your client base in XYZ industry or build a lead list of this persona, right? Then you need to make sure that you're only engaging in solutions like that are actually going to support that mission. Because otherwise what happens for a lot of people is they'll go, yeah, well, I'm targeting this really specific persona, but I'm going to go in all these engagement pods that some of them, they've got 200 different users in there and whatnot. But then you end up getting so distracted and so excited by getting all these views. Right. So then it becomes an ego game. And then you wonder why you're still not making money. And so I think people need to balance that and really just get clear on, yeah, the views are great. But as a lot of people say, and I think it's, it's quite like your followers aren't going to pay the bills necessarily for most people, right? If you're becoming a global personal brand and your objective is to be on the stages and whatnot, and you really become that global influencer, your followers, that will probably help pay the bills. For the average business owner, probably not, right? Really, they just need the follower base for the social proof. But what's more important than that is actually having those sort of conversations that are largely geared towards turning into some sort of sale or some sort of engagement. So really, I think it's just getting clear on your objectives first and then figuring out whether or not there is, say, an engagement pod solution that's going to actually help serve your objectives. But beyond that, I think what I get most excited about with that conversation is, just sort of the broader, marketing landscape. If you look at Facebook, and they recently banned another, paid advertiser for using a similar strategy through, automation and robotics and whatnot, and to go and do content engagements and a manipulation and artificially manipulate the engagement using automation on paid ads, right? So the reason that they got absolutely slammed for that and banned from using the Facebook platform is because it was in a paid environment. So it makes it more dangerous, right? Because it's material. But so at the moment, we're currently turning a blind eye to that in the organic space. But I think what we'll see over time is that they really start to gel together. Because even as, say, a marketer, right, or a business owner, or even, say, just as a personal brand, how do we consider, say, if you look at traditional marketing and, you can't sort of, deploy false and misleading advertising and stuff like that. How will we as a social media population begin to perceive artificially manipulating content engagement? Is that deception? Are we being deceived, And I think it just becomes this really massive, complicated, philosophical conversation. Really? Yeah. But I think it's going to be very important, particularly for how these platforms evolve and what sort of things they put in place and stuff. So, yeah. So in terms of whether I should use it, I personally don't. But at the same time, pardon?
You don't need to.
So, I think it's always clear on your objective and make sure whatever you're doing on there is serving your objective at the end of the day, and you don't lose sight of your own identity as a business or an individual. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no set it and forget it as a business. If you're just getting started as an individual, there's a few hacks out there to be able to get the engines riled up and get your content going on there. But it's your job to build the brand, and it takes longer than you think. There is no overnight success. You put your blood, sweat, and tears in it like anything else in life. So I think the $1 million question, and I think why I would say 90% of people are on LinkedIn. There's like 10% that are just on there to feed their ego, maybe a little bit more than that. But majority of people are on there to be able to say, hey, look at me, look at my content, or hey, look at me because I'm engaging. And then please DM me and give me a lead and let's schedule a call. So people are on there to
just pay me some money. That's all I ask.
Yeah. So if I'm going to have an ego about my content, I want the ego to be about, I hope this content piques people's interest to go, you know what? Maybe a podcast is my natural next move. So the $1 million question, how do you generate leads on LinkedIn? How do you get that inbox just overflowing and responding to messages a year later? How does that work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a big question.
We're closing with this question. So this is like,
yeah.
But
Look,
I'm sure. So look at it this way, because we're almost out of time, and I don't want to keep you all night, literally. Pretend that you and I hopped in the back of a cab randomly together and struck up a conversation, and you realize, oh my gosh, you're Sebastian Rusk with fill in the blank company. I've been wanting to have a conversation with your team forever. Well, great. I can totally make that happen. We've got a bit of a ride here. It's about 7 minutes long, maybe about 5 minutes long. Our biggest need right now, Sally, is an organization is to generate leads. So how do I do that?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to get into any of the tactical things like, email strategies or content strategies and clickbait headline strategies, whatever. I'll keep it really simple. I think the best place to start from a content marketing perspective, if you want to generate leads on LinkedIn, you need to have a content marketing strategy in place. You have to have it, right? Because people are making educated purchasing decisions more and more in today's day and age. They want to know, they're going to do a ton of research before they make a decision. And on LinkedIn, you have the capability to use your personal brand or say a company or whatever to really go out there and become the lead educator in that space to help them make that buying decision. So first things first, you need to have a content marketing strategy. With your content marketing strategy, the simplest way I can put the framework sort of out there, if you like, particularly through audio, which is difficult, but break it down this way. Always start with expertise, right? I'm sort of showing my hands at the top. Expertise, right? So what is my or our expertise, right? And then what are some key messages under that those areas of expertise, because you might have multiple. And then how can we turn those micro messages into content assets? Because that's going to help us build credibility and social proof around who we are, what we're capable of doing, and how we can actually help you. And then you have your other strategies on LinkedIn, which are the more direct and high intent, right? So that could involve reaching out to people. It could involve asking them to go through to this landing page to get a free item and so forth, whatever the scenario is. But you need that content marketing strategy to be in place and be consistent so that when you do, for example, ask someone to do something and say, can you subscribe here or can you put your email here to get this free course or whatever, they have something to reference. You make that research process easier for them. So you're asking them for something, they can look at the profile, whether it's company or personal, they can go through, have a look, consume some of your content, and then really get a feel for who you are, what you're all about. So really, I think to very, very high level, they're the sorts of things you need to be thinking about because we no longer live in an age where you can just say, hey, I'm in front of you or I'm messaging you and you should buy this from me or you should become a lead because the reality of the situation is that we as individuals have so much access to information now, it's not even funny. And as a result, you can't prey on the naivety of people. So you actually have to go and build solid trust before they'll even have that first conversation with you. So yeah.
Imagine that we're living in a day and time where we can build trust and relationships through our content. Like online, like never meeting anybody.
No, I will share one thing that's a really good example, and I've got plenty of them. I mean, I've had people say to me, we're supposed to go to tender for this, but we just want to work with you. So how can we sort it out, right? Because it's such a go to tender process, whatever. But one of the best ones I've ever heard, and all the best examples come from the content side of things. And the guy literally sat in front of me. He said, okay, in this company, we've been watching you for 8 months. We noticed that you talk very quickly and you're always putting videos out. So you obviously don't talk shit and we want to work with you. And I was like, right, okay, good assessment. And guess what? The beauty of it, they've never liked, never commented on anything, but they're watching and they're doing their homework because they're scoping, large scale work. that they're scoping which key service providers they're looking to engage. And that's how they did their research on me. So never underestimate the power of the silent people that may or may not be watching, because you'll often find that they're actually your biggest ticket opportunities through the LinkedIn platform.
100%. All right, we got 2 minutes left here, so we're going to finish it out with our friends at Pod Decks right here. Have you ever seen a Pod Deck before? They're brand new.
No.
You might not have seen them before, Sally. Pod Decks, the interview deck contains 50 unique conversation starting questions to help you take your podcast interviews to the next level and keep your audience entertained. Well, I clearly do not have a challenge coming up with questions, but what a brilliant idea, huh? So let's dig into the deck real quick, because most people are like, what am I going to talk about? And we'll pull out a question here. Let's see what we're working with.
That would actually be really fun to do a whole podcast session on that, because like if you think about people playing card games, you know, and like there's these funny card games out there and whatever, that's actually a really cool idea for a conversation.
Shay and I unwrapped these things when they actually got here, and she wouldn't stop with them. She's like, okay, one more. And we were like at an hour and 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, no more Pod Decks here. I think I got one, and this is completely relevant, especially if you were on your way over the pond to the States here. Who would you most like to sit next to on a 10-hour flight, and why?
Oh gosh, I barely want to sit near myself for that long on a flight.
I'm really the same thing. One person though.
Oh, one person. Okay. Well, can I throw two out there? I'd have to think about it a little bit more.
Well, yeah, because you could have one person on each side of you. Why not?
Okay. Yeah, probably. I really like Charlie Munger, who's business partner with Warren Buffett. Really like him and his thinking. And the other person would be Elon Musk, because I actually have this secret sort of like admiration for watching him talk, because you can tell he's breaking down these really complex things. And he's like, how do I explain it to these idiots who have no idea what I'm talking about? And so I just love watching him talk. So yeah, that would probably be it. What about you? Do you get to answer that question?
Yeah, I do. It would most definitely be Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah, cool.
Host of American Idol. So I've been following his lead for probably the past, since I got my start as far as online stage presence and the whole, and the guy just doesn't mess up. And he now runs Hollywood. He took over for, Dick Clark and the greats, and just has a stellar career. And I admire him. So I'd love to have a conversation with him. And I believe that'll happen. You never really know. My buddy Ryan went into Matthew McConaughey on the airplane the other day.
Yeah, wow. Actually, you know what? And you're right. You never know what will happen. Something like LinkedIn, and I won't get into it because I'll ramble for hours, but things like social media, including LinkedIn, they really have this capacity to break down those barriers to entry for conversations with people that in past lives you could not get near, right? So yeah, never underestimate it. You'll be on that plane one day with him, I swear.
Hey, we may be on a plane together someday. Who knows, Sally, huh? Hey, thanks so much for making time again, literally in the middle of the night in Australia to burn the midnight oil while I'm just now getting in and having my coffee here in the States to really share what your gift has been regarding, developing your brand. And it's just been exciting to continue to watch it unfold and consume your content. I'm fired up to see what things will even look like a year from now from you, because you're just doing some really cool stuff. And most important, you're doing shit that matters. You're helping people understand what they don't know that they don't know. And you're also helping brands work through that learning curve of understanding where their place is in this whole crazy, loud digital world. So you're going to have to come back again. Maybe we'll do an episode on just Pod Deck questions.
Yeah, that would be so much fun. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. You ever make it to the States?
No, I've never been, but I do want to come.
I know. I want to go to Australia too. So
yeah, you should come. Yeah, Australia's beautiful.
I've never met an Australian that was not awesome. I've never met like a mean Australian. I mean, maybe I could spend some time there. There's plenty of them around.
Well, apparently we're really laid back here. We're really slow. We're really laid back and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
How's everything going with the fires and everything over there?
Yeah, I think it's slowly getting better. It's not good. And it obviously, I think unfortunately a lot of it sort of becomes a conversation more about the political side of things and people using it for political sort of, sort of warfare and arguments and whatnot, which is a bit disappointing because of how actually extreme it is. But yeah, I think generally speaking, it's as good as it can be, I suppose. So yeah.
Well, I know everybody's been all hands on deck and, hoping for the best for Australia there. So, well, all the links and everything we've mentioned in the episode here is going to be available in the show notes. What's the best way for people to connect with you? Obviously LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the place to go.
All right, good deal. So all of the links will be in the show notes. Be sure you reach out and connect with Sally. If you send her a message, you're probably not going to get a response immediately.
Catch me in the comments usually.
Yes. Catch me in the comments. Hey, that's a good
That's like my slag slogan. My slogan is like, catch me in the comments on LinkedIn. That's where you'll find me most.
Hysterical. Oh, one last question. When are you starting a podcast?
Oh, well, interestingly, I sort of dipped my toe in one for a bit, upload a few things to SoundCloud, but you know what I haven't done? I haven't held myself to account for following through with it. I don't know.
Do you have your past workshops or talks archived anywhere?
Yeah, like I've got a whole bunch recorded. Oh, you just extract the audio.
So we work the magic with your intro, your outro, and make it sound like it's a fresh, what's it called? But you're just teeing up past content that you still talk about today.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Put that little podcast bug in your ear.
Yeah, I'm going to. Awesome. Well, maybe I'll start it soon. We might, talk about that. That'll be fun.
Let's do that. Sally, thanks again. Let's stay in touch. It's an absolute blessing to be connected with you. Keep rocking and rolling, and I hope you come back soon.
Easy. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Seb Rush Show. I sure do appreciate it. How awesome is Sally? Make sure you connect with her. You can follow her, connect with her. All of her links and information will be provided in the show notes here in the description, wherever you are consuming podcasts. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. Signing off from the podcastlaunchlab.com studio here in beautiful Coral Gables, Florida. Talk to you next time.